If we can have everybody, can everybody hear me? If we can have everybody come on inside, don't forget to get scanned at the door with your badge to get credit for your attendance. So to get started off, we're going to have the posting of the colors followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The posting of the colors is going to be presented by the Norfolk Sheriff's Office Honor Guard. Everybody please stand.
Detail. Left. Ace. Freeze and colors.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Colors. Right. Face. Forward. March.
Next, we will have an invocation by Sheriff Joe McLaughlin from New Kent County. Joe, back here.
Let us pray. Today we come to you, Lord, with bowed heads and open hearts. We pray that you bless this meeting and the people gathered here today. May you enlighten each of us so that we can contribute our expertise, knowledge, and ideas positively. We pray that you will bless all of our plans, that we could successfully bring them to fruition. May you shower your blessings, too, on the people left in our homes and in our communities and keep them safe from harm. We pray for all the people of the world, as well as those throughout the nation in the times of turmoil and hatred. May everyone find peace and love in their hearts and spread these to everyone around them. Let this meeting be the gathering of peacemakers for the good of society and the benefit of those we serve. We ask your blessings on our speakers and that you bless our time together. May we grasp their messages and may our hearts be open to respond to you and your wisdom. All these things we ask in your mighty name. Amen.
Amen. Y'all can be seated. Before we introduce our next speaker, I would like to acknowledge that Colonel Gary Settle with Virginia State Police is here with us. Gary is here most every year that we're here and is always supportive of us. Our first speaker, when I got the book, I had this big long bio that was going to take me probably till 5 o'clock to read. So I kind of trimmed it down a little bit, and I think he actually needs no introduction because he's one of our own. And I'm actually very proud of the fact that he was appointed by the governor to be our next public safety and Homeland Security Secretary. So Bob Mosier.
Thanks. We're going to be here for the rest of the afternoon. No, only kidding. I'm not going to do that to you. I just got to tell you, I'm just overwhelmed with appreciation, and I'm grateful to be in this position as secretary for this administration and what's happening. And quite frankly, I don't think that could have happened had it not been for you, our collective law enforcement family, state police, police chiefs, police departments, but also the sheriff's office, the constitutional office of sheriff, and what we represent in our communities throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. I got to tell you, coming on board as sheriff in 2016, if you'd have told me I'd have been standing here today, I'd say I don't think so. Just didn't see that happen. But the programs that are available through the Virginia Sheriff's Institute, also with the Virginia Sheriff's Association, are in part responsible for that. So, to your executive director, John Jones, I thank you. It's wonderful to see familiar faces. I hadn't seen anybody for a while, so it's been a good time to get back together, enjoying it. I know there are going to be different presentations over the next day and a half, I think, right, that'll be really helpful for what we're doing collectively from a law enforcement standpoint. But as a former sheriff, I'm excited to speak briefly with you today about Governor Youngkin's administration and what we're doing for really working for each one of you in your communities, working together. So one of the priorities of the administration is the borders and doing what we can do, our part, from Virginia to protect the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And earlier today, there was a press release that indicated a MOU that's been signed, I think, with 26 other governors in the United States. I gave that to the executive director, and so that'll make its way to you. But it talks about Virginia's response and how we are going to be able to assist with that. And Superintendent Settle and Virginia State Police are going to be involved with that as well, especially from the intelligence and fusion standpoint, to be able to get the information to the communities that we need to be mindful of. Very important, especially for the DTOs, drug trafficking organizations, and just how we plan to police, and be able to address those issues in our communities. And believe me, it affects all of us. I'm watching the violent crime inside the cities in the Commonwealth across the board, and there's initiatives underway to be involved with that as well. Just to hit on some of the things that the governor is on the priority list, and especially when it comes to law enforcement, it has to do with raises for law enforcement. The governor is committed to working to ensure that we have competitive pay and excellent training equipment. And so two things I wanted to hit on the equipment category for you. Just keep this in mind. One is something called Comlink. Does everybody know what Comlink is? I'm not going to ask anybody to raise hands, but Comlink is interoperability, being able to communicate with the state police or really anybody else. And the best thing about Comlink, and this is through public safety in Virginia, write me if you need more information, because I'm going to be reaching out to you if you don't have it, is that it's free. Doesn't cost anything, and you can use it. So it's like free chicken. Nobody turns down free chicken, right? It's true. So the other thing I'm going to mention here as we go on is I mentioned training, excellent training and resources. How many of you are familiar with Option 5? DCJS, Option 5? We are going to get really in the middle of working with DCJS to address the issues of having certifications accepted from other jurisdictions outside of Virginia, and also federal law enforcement training. So that way, if you want to hire someone because of the recruitment effort and retention, that you have the ability to bring someone on board, and then we can get those exceptions notified because they've gone through training. It's just whether or not it's been the basic academy. So anyway, I understand that as a sheriff, I had the same issues to work with, but we're going to have fully competent, trained law enforcement officers available to work in each jurisdiction. So we're trying to help it. Matter of fact, there was a sheriff from Southwest Virginia that said he had somebody from North Carolina that worked regularly with his organization over the years, and he retired, and he wanted to come to work in Virginia, and he was a certified North Carolina law enforcement officer, but they wouldn't accept him. They were going to make him go back through the academy. Just didn't make sense. So we're going to address those issues. The budget hasn't been finalized yet. It still needs to be voted on and approved. So we're working to make that happen. So any support you can lend to that effort, we'd appreciate it. We need to work harder to retain law enforcement. I know people have been trying to get out, but it is a new day. So have those communications. And if there's something we can do from public safety, we want to get out to meet you and to be able to address any concerns that you might have. On that note, somebody told me they tried to get a hold of me. They couldn't get a hold of me. They have my phone number. So get ready to get your pen. I'm going to give it to you now. You can call me directly, send me a text. I got to look it up. Unless John has it. John, have you got it handy?
I got it right here.
Yeah, I do. I want to give it to you because, I mean, you have my number. Say it again? Which one do you want? Yeah, right. No, I want the number. Hang on here. There it is. I got it right here. So mobile, 804 418 5324. 804 418 5324. Somebody told me earlier that'd be a mistake. I don't know. We'll see. We'll do that. I just want you to know that we're here for you. The administration, Governor Youngkin, is here for you in support. A couple things to cover. I know I've only got a few minutes. Safer communities to address violent crime. We just started a listening series that we went down to Virginia Beach and spoke with the chief of police down there, also the Commonwealth attorney and lawmakers to identify the things that work in those communities for violence. And so we're going to be going to different areas. And I just got finished talking to Sheriff Barron. I'm going down to Norfolk. It's going to be, did I say Norfolk right? Did I get that right? Norfolk. Okay. So we're going to be down there on May 4th, I think is what it is, that we're slated to come down there. But we're going to do this inside the different areas where we're having the violence and be able to work to identify a path forward that the governor can champion for safer communities. And he's committed to this, folks. I'm telling you, I haven't seen anything like it on the part of leadership in government where the governor is very intent about supporting you in your daily work. Safer schools, you saw the legislation passed about I think we already signed it into law on SROs, right, to school resource officers. And I got to tell you, this is what we're learning is very important to the violence initiative, is to have SROs engaged because they're really eyes and ears. And not only that, they help with the issues inside the schools. There was a report, if you didn't get it, I didn't know about it till I came into this role in public safety, but you've heard this talk about a school-to-prison pipeline. You've heard things about this. It's in Virginia, it's not true. There was a study that was done by Virginia Tech that outlined how they got those stats, and it was completely wrong. And so that report is available through the Department of Criminal Justice Services, and we'll send it to you. I'd be grateful if you'd post it so you know you have information and you can go back to your community. You can talk to them about safer schools and the importance of having SROs. And if I'm not mistaken, even the jurisdictions in Virginia that did away with SROs, I think they're calling them back or they're doing some other kind of, they call it something else, but it's the same thing. So more to come on that. Human trafficking. And the colonel didn't know I'm going to do this to him, but I'm going to put him on the spot here in a second. Combat human trafficking. He kicked off an initiative this week that's it's right now, Operation Safe Passage. Colonel, can you join me for just a minute and tell him about it? He was not prepared for this, so thank you. I'll be right back.
No, I wasn't prepared for that.
You always prepare.
Yeah, well, no, thank you, Mr. Secretary. We kicked off on Monday, as the Secretary alluded to, one of the governor's initiatives is to combat human trafficking. Although we all have been very much aware of that issue through the years, there's now a concentration on it in a commission that will be formulated out of Executive Order, I believe, number 7, And what led us to, on Monday, start through our safety division with the Virginia State Police is to go out to the rest areas and or truck stops in every state police division across the Commonwealth. And a lot of your folks and local folks participated in some of those across the state, but it was an awareness to push out the educational piece to truck drivers. I mean, hundreds of thousands of trucks go through Virginia. And then we have, obviously, the commuter or the in-state traveling and the out-of-state travel that goes through our rest areas and stops at our truck stops as well. There are eyes and ears, is what the Secretary was talking about, and we met with the media on Monday, and the Secretary kicked that off for the administration. We were pleased to be there, to be a part of it, but it's obviously a mutual effort. But human trafficking is the second largest criminal enterprise across the world. I didn't realize that. It's a billions and billions dollar enterprise. There's many things get put into the human trafficking bucket, if you will, but there's many silos with it. So there's a lot to be learned about that, and certainly we're glad to be a partner with you all because you all absolutely know your areas, your counties, your regions, and we depend on you very much to assist. Mr. Secretary, I hope that was okay, being put on the spot.
Superintendent, thank you. I really appreciate that. Great working relationship with the state police. So this is an initiative, and you know what? There's going to be a dedication of a case management system to look at this and the technology. We had a briefing on this yesterday. We're going to have more information for you to be able to draw from going forward. Very excited about these things that are taking place with the Department of Criminal Justice Services. Who would like to hear about ECOs and TDOs? Anybody in this room? Yeah, that's the easy button for a sheriff. I can tell you that right now. So, look, you're going to hear from the Commissioner of Health tomorrow, but I can tell you that we're making progress. Not the kind of progress we would like, but we've only been in office for 4 months now. But there is one initiative that Nelson Smith, the Commissioner for Health, is going to talk about tomorrow. I think it's a kickoff from Region 3 to kind of help offset, the continuation of having the deputies that are on duty working to, either stay with an ECO or a TDO until they can make it happen. So there's an alternative transportation or alternative custody. As a way to think about this moving forward. So we're trying to be as enterprising as we can, as creative as we can, dealing with this issue. But the governor has intimated that he wants it addressed, and he's going to work to make that happen. We have to make it happen. It's just not the role for us. We're not. That is not in our wheelhouse. We can serve the community in any way that's needed, but it has to be with a definition of what's going to take place long term. So that's in the works. So we're going to continue with that. And feel free to find out more. Make contact with Nelson Smith when he's here tomorrow. A lot of bills that didn't go through the General Assembly in the Senate that allowed law enforcement to do their jobs, inspections, missing taillights, things of this nature that we had to deal with. Bottom line is the governor and I are here for you, and we all have your back on these things that are moving forward. We're going to try to make the appropriate changes to the law over time in the next session. So we're going to continue with those efforts, and we're making progress. It's happening. So I only had 10 minutes. I probably stayed pretty close to that. I tried to. Sorry. But I just want to thank you again for being able to be here to serve you in this capacity and your support. If you happen to be in Richmond, please stop in to see us at any time, and we'd love to catch up. And Sheriff Amos, you're going to be done at the end of this term, right?
End of this term.
All right. So y'all got to do something special for him. I don't know what that is, so we'll have to figure that out. We'll be in contact about that, right? No, you got great leadership in the Virginia Sheriff's Association and the Institute, so we're just very grateful for that. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yes, sir. All right. Thank you.
Real quickly, actually, 2 members of my staff who are here, my captain and my lieutenant, reminded me on the way down here not to screw up things. They actually sent me a text on things to do and not to do. One was make sure my fly was up and don't talk monotone and all that. Well, guess what? I went 10 minutes and I screwed something up. I actually forgot to welcome everybody here. I don't know if you all realize that, but I skipped something on the agenda. We want to thank everybody for coming. We want to thank John's staff, Megan and John and Susan and everybody else there to put this together. We need to thank all the vendors who have shown up. If it wasn't for them, we probably wouldn't be having this event. And Sheriff Barron and his staff for hosting everything. And like he said earlier, if you need anything, make sure you get in touch with them. But anyway, fellas, I screwed up, okay? All right, next on the agenda is an update on ECO TDO transportation. I think John will be introducing our next speaker.
Richard, why don't you make your way on up here? While I'm introducing our next speaker, I want to tell you a little bit about a personal story with Richard Schaudester. But before I do that, he's from educated at Southside Virginia Community College. That was Mecklenburg County, my home county. VCU, majored in administration and public safety, a year or two after I did that. He went on to Marshall Wolf School of Law, William and Mary, and he worked as a police officer at William and Mary, worked in a private law practice. He was assistant Commonwealth attorney for Giles County and county attorney for Giles County, and in that role is why he's here today. But before I ask him to step up, I want to tell you, I haven't seen Richard in 50 years, I believe it is. When I was 16 years old, I was a dispatcher for the South Hill Police Department, and I stayed there when I was in high school working on weekends, and that's a 911 center with no 911. It was old dial phones back in the 1800s. Anyway, when I left, I went to VCU. Richard took my place as a dispatcher at South Hill Police Department. That's where I first got to know him. Then he disappeared until he showed back up. Elizabeth said, "This gentleman knows you." And I said, "Oh, yeah, I remember that." So it's been 50 years. Welcome, Richard. We're looking forward to hearing what you've got to say. Thank you. Give him a warm welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with such a good group. And I had heard for years, like John said, I haven't seen him in 50 years. I'd heard that he never amounted to anything. But then I've heard all kinds of stories today that maybe my sources of information were wrong. We'll have to try to get some different informants. And I have to say that we have local government attorneys organization. We have conferences twice a year. We've had it here recently. But you guys have a lot better food than they do. So I'm contemplating whether or not I want to run for sheriff. And this is the first that Sheriff Millines has heard of that. So if I don't make it home, tell the superintendent that of find Sheriff Millines, and there may be evidence. So I'm here to talk to you today about, I certainly don't have the answers for TDOs and all the problems that you're having with them. I can tell you some of what our experience is, and we've taken sort of a drastic step of filing a petition for mandamus against the commissioner and against the director at Commonwealth Center, which is the only facility in the state that takes juveniles. And I would also tell you that I think Secretary Moser is correct. I think there is a change in attitude in the new administration. They have just come in. I've had multiple discussions with the Attorney General's office. I think they're making an effort. And why did Giles County file this petition? Well, I represent the Department of Social Services. We had a child in foster care, terrible situation, 9 years old, but weighs 160 pounds. And had numerous encounters with law enforcement. Blacksburg Police Lieutenant told me they thought they were going to have to tase her. Well, you can imagine what kind of optic that is to tase a 9-year-old girl. But that's our social workers have had to fight with her. Sheriff's Office personnel have had to subdue her. Anyway, she was at a facility in Chesterfield where we got her placed, and she ran away from there. Went into somebody's house. She'd assaulted a couple other kids there, and as a result, she was TDO'd by Richmond Crisis at the Commonwealth Center. Sat in the ER at Chippenham for 5 days, and Commonwealth Center agreed to take her on a Friday morning, which was after the TDO expired at, I think, like 2:40 in the morning. And for whatever reason, Richmond Crisis would not renew the TDO, even though she hadn't received any treatment. So we ended up having to send social workers to get her, bring her back to Giles County, and she proceeded to assault a teacher at school on the following Monday. We got another TDO. Commonwealth Center said, we've got 15 people on the waiting list. This child had already spent 2 nights at the DSS office, and trust me when I tell you that our DSS office doesn't have facilities to provide overnight accommodations to children. No shower facilities. We obviously got bathrooms, but no shower facilities, no cooking facilities. So that was pretty difficult, and so at that point I just took a pretty hard line with the director of Commonwealth Center and said, look, we're bringing her. When this TDO's issued, the sheriff, and as soon as the doctor says she's medically cleared, we're bringing her up there. Well, you'll have to wait in the parking lot. No, we're not waiting in the parking lot. We've got a judicial order that says we're to transport her to your facility, and we're going to do that. Well, we won't let you in. Well, we'll force our way in, and if somebody tries to prevent that, we'll have charges brought for obstruction of justice because we've got a valid judicial order. Well, as a result of that, they said bring her, and she's still there today because you can't find a private facility that's willing to take a juvenile that's been combative or assaultive. So as a result of that, we filed, and we actually filed a mandamus petition. I filed it on a Monday in the interim time there between that and the time we got the second TDO. We were content, sort of, to have had conversations with the Attorney General's office. Allison Tysinger is the assistant AG that represents DBHDS. Had conversations with her. She said Commissioner Smith was trying to make efforts. I mean, this is not going to be an overnight solution. Commonwealth Center has 48 beds, and the last that I heard from them, they were staffing 18. They have 75 position vacancies, and they can't hire anybody. They said last I heard talk to the admissions director there, they hadn't had a new job application in over 6 weeks. Private facilities are hiring the people because they're paying more money. I've had numerous conversations with Jason Ballard, who's our delegate, great friend of law enforcement. You guys are lucky to have him in the legislature. He actually is my next door neighbor. And the only fault that I know of him is he's got a dog that's a Democrat. I call his dog Chuck Schumer because all he does, he's a golden retriever. And most golden retrievers are friendly. This dog hates everybody. And I call him Chuck Schumer because all he does is bark and poop. Anyway, we were willing to let this thing sit on the docket, give the state a chance. I mean, we'd gotten this girl in the facility, and the Attorney General's office called about 2 weeks ago and said, we want to get this heard. We want to get the court to make a decision. One of the things they had asked for was to change venue to Stanton, since that's where the Commonwealth Center is. We had a phone conference with Judge Turk in Montgomery County, who hears our civil cases, last Friday, and he agreed to transfer it to Stanton. But he also was really clear to the assistant AG, and it wasn't Ms. Tysinger, it was one of the attorney generals that handles litigation. But he made it very clear that he said, and I kind of paraphrased, but he said, all they're asking you to do is follow the law. That's all. And you guys got a problem, you need to figure it out. You don't want the court to solve it for you. And response from the AG's office was, yes, sir, message received, loud and clear. One thing that was kind of concerning, one of their pleas that they filed, their allegation was that the TDO doesn't require them to do anything. It doesn't require the state to do anything. It doesn't require the facility to do anything. I don't think that flies as a legal argument. That basically guts the statute. And you know, kind of to back up a little bit more, there'd been some discussion. I think back in September, we had a situation where TDO was issued, and our sheriff's office has been told by Access, which is the community services board people that evaluate, that, you know, if there's not a bed available, just don't serve the TDO. And they'd been following that advice. I wasn't aware of that, but we had a person that was at the hospital, had been medically killed, supposed to go to, I believe, Southwestern State Facility, didn't have a bed, so they said don't serve it. So we didn't serve it. Person left the hospital, walks down the road a couple hundred yards to Goodwill facility, which is closed. This is 1 o'clock in the morning, and spends the night out on their loading dock. Fortunately, the Pressburg police found them the next morning. They didn't suffer any injuries, but you know that kind of raised the alarm flags. And you know, do we have liability here? And I think the answer to that is yes. There is potential liability. So at that point, you know, I really dug pretty deep into the statute, and you know, just to see, you know, what it said, and I'll put these up. I don't know if you have a copy of the materials or not, but you know, but there's one statute for adults. It's 37.2.809.1, and it says, under no circumstances shall state facility fail or refuse to admit an individual who meets criteria for temporary detention pursuant to 37.2.809. The juvenile section is 16.1-340.1:1, and it says, under no circumstances shall a state facility fail or refuse to admit a minor who meets criteria for temporary detention pursuant to 16.1-340.1. So it doesn't get much clearer than that. I mean, it says can't refuse for any reason or under no circumstances, but yet they're refusing consistently. And I think, yes. Sure. Yes.
They are using the federal law, the Impala law, to say that they can't accept them. But could you, like, under no circumstances, can you talk about the federal law, the Impala law?
Yeah, so I mean, that's, and I've talked to the AG's office about this. This is one of the, I'll call it the ploys that the state uses to try to keep you from bringing these people to the hospital. Or to their facility. And what EMTALA basically says is you go to a hospital for treatment, the hospital has to treat you. And they can't, if they can't treat you, they have to discharge you to a facility that can provide appropriate treatment. And they can't discharge you until they do find a facility that can appropriately treat you. Well, the vast majority, at least in our situation, of these people that are going to the hospital are not going to the hospital seeking medical treatment. We're taking them there under the ECO. And the doctor is saying, yeah, they're good to go, but the state's filing these EMTALA complaints against the hospital to try to get the hospitals to say, no, they, you know, you can't take them. We got this idea from Roanoke County. And I talked to their attorney. Our group has a pretty robust listserv, and I'd put out some inquiries on that. And Roanoke County attorney called me and said, you know, most of their TDOs are Catawba Hospital. And they said, you know, here's what we're doing. When the doctor says they're ready to go, we're taking them. We're calling Catawba, and we're saying, we're on the way. We'll be there in, you know, whatever time it takes to get there. Of course, they say, you know, you can't bring them, but we're taking them. And I think the first time it happened, he told me that they locked the officer in the facility. Then I think that caused a discussion to ensue about who at the facility wanted to be arrested for abduction, and that pretty quickly ended in him leaving. So they had been doing this for some time, and what they were doing to protect the hospital was the doctor was giving the officer a statement saying, we haven't released this patient. They're medically cleared, but we haven't released them because the other facility hadn't accepted them. and the officer signs and says, I've got a court order that says transport. And so that's what I'm going to do. But to get back, I mean, so I don't think it's an entire violation. I'm not a healthcare law expert, but it just seems to me that that's just one of the things that they're doing. And I sympathize with the state facilities. They don't have the staff. They don't have the beds. I mean, Commonwealth Center says, we're dealing with some kids that have a lot of problems. It's dangerous for them to be here and us not to have enough staff. I'm on our regional jail board. We're probably 80 officers down. We've got some times when it's not a good situation at the jail because you can't just say, all right, inmates, you can go. You've got to take care of them, and we don't have enough staff to do it. And you guys are probably dealing with the same thing. But, my client, Department of Social Services, when the court says, you take custody of this child, we don't get to say, oh, I'm sorry, Judge, we can't do that. We got to figure it out. And so, our position is that's what the state needs to do. Now, ultimately it takes money from the legislature. And I'm told by my legislative sources that, there's no appetite to change the statute, but there's also no appetite to throw in more money. Maybe that will change. I mean, I was kind of curious about why the AG's office wanted to let this go forward. I said, because I think the law is pretty clear. I mean, and they don't disagree with me on the law. I mean, they agree the law says they've got to do it, they've got to take them, but, it's just a practical issue, and I sympathize with that. But so going back to September, I sent a letter to Director of DBHDS, which was at that time was Commissioner Land, and to the directors at Catawba and Southwestern, because that's our primary state facilities, and said, we get a TDO, when the doctor says they're cleared, we're going to call you, we're going to bring them. And no response. I mean, nothing. Not even, thank you for your letter, you're crazy, nothing. And we started doing that. Now, keep in mind, we're small jurisdictions, 17,000 people on a good day, and, so we don't have a lot of 2DOs, maybe a couple a month, sheriff, at most, so we're not overwhelming the facility. But I think there's other jurisdictions that have started doing the same thing. I mean, there was a group, like I say, Appomattox, I think Bedford attorney was involved, Washington County's attorney was involved. I mean, we were getting together information to file a mandamus petition to try to bring this to a head. And, it sort of got to the point where, they were taking these people, not willingly, they're not there with the arms out saying thank you for bringing them, but they were taking them. And I found out from the AG's office they call these drop-offs, and they keep statistics on that. And Ms. Tysinger said, well, we have more drop-offs in Southwest Virginia than anywhere else. And I said, yeah, well, I understand it. She didn't know anything about the letters, and I said, well, how could they not consult with you? And her response was that, she felt like Commissioner Land was just overwhelmed by it and didn't know what to do, so did nothing. I think I'm told that, Delegate Ballard's a lieutenant colonel in the Army, he's a JAG officer, and he tells me that Commissioner Smith is an ex-Green Beret and that he's going to, again, he's not going to solve it overnight, but he's going to make some progress. I think in moving forward, the AG's office wants to, I think they're concerned they're going to get other jurisdictions filing these petitions, and so they may as well get one decided and maybe save themselves some work, which I guess sort of makes sense. We haven't set a hearing in Stanton yet, but we're going to do that. So just kind of quickly, I just put down, the TDO. The first one is the temporary detention order for juveniles, and one of the things our district court judge says a lot is nobody reads the law, nobody reads the court order. But the court order says you're commanded to execute this order, take the juvenile into custody, transport them from their present location to the location listed below. Doesn't say anything about sitting with them in a hospital for 5 days. It's just take them into custody and transport them. The adult order, this is just an excerpt from the form, says the same thing. Commanded them to execute the order, take them into custody, and transport them from the current location to the location listed below. ICSB talks a lot about two-stop TDOs. There is no two-stop TDO. There's nothing in the code anywhere that says anything about a two-stop TDO. You take them to the medical facility for medical evaluation to make sure, they're not having a diabetic episode or they don't have a UTI that can cause people to I don't want to say act crazy, but act irrationally, or they're not on drugs, all those kind of things. But once that's done, they don't need medical treatment, then they go to the facility. Now, if all of you start doing that, we're going to overwhelm the system really quickly, I think. So, is that a good answer? Probably not. But that's what we've been doing, and I think that's why nobody else out in central southwestern Virginia has filed anything except for this one child. And Commonwealth Center maintains, I think, like a 15 to 20 kid waiting list at any point in time. And, these are the kids that need treatment the worst. I mean, these are the ones that nobody else will take. Somebody's got to do something with them. That social services can't handle them. I mean, we don't have mental health professionals. And, at least our crisis people don't seem to be able to provide much benefit. I also put in the statute, this is the one for the juveniles highlighted and made bigger, the section that says, they can't refuse. Same thing there on for the adult side. Is there liability? Digging around in the cases, I found this Nares Grocery versus Bailey, which happens to be a case out of Giles County. In that case, the sheriff made improper service of process, and as a result, the plaintiff didn't. It was a collection case. Of course, it's 1933, but the sheriff made improper service and caused the plaintiff not to get judgment, and so the plaintiff sued the sheriff because of the improper service and not getting judgment, and got judgment against the sheriff. I think it was $933. Then you've got, of course, nonfeasance is a failure to perform an act that's required by law. The TDO is directed, if it's directed to you and says, take this person into custody, transport them, and you don't do that, then is that nonfeasance? I mean, that's certainly a concern. Pretty good friends with Jim Gwynn in Salem. He represents Division of Risk Management on most of their liability cases. I've discussed this with him and said, hey, do you think this is seriously liability for, suppose, we don't serve this TDO and this person goes out and jumps off a bridge or becomes seriously injured that would have been prevented if we didn't serve TDO. He said, yeah, I can see, with trends in the Fourth Circuit, that's a concern to him. And this Burdett versus Marks case says that there's no general duty to protect the public at large, but there can be a special duty towards a particular person. If the breach of that duty results in an injury, can create liability. That case, I think, involved, the facts of that were there was it seems like I recall, an automobile accident, and officer came and the people were assaulting each other, and the officer didn't do anything about it, and one of them was fairly seriously injured. But that's certainly, there's potential, and so filing a lawsuit is sort of like fishing. It's easy enough to file a lawsuit. You can always, most always find a lawyer to file a lawsuit, but collecting money is sort of like the catching. Easy to fish, not so easy to catch all the time. Same thing with lawsuits. But do you want to deal with the aggravation of it? Do you want to deal with having to take up your time doing that instead of doing what you need to do? So this is what we're doing, and I know some other jurisdictions are doing this. Talked to some people down in the exhibit area this morning. We're executing the TDO when it's issued. As soon as the doctor says they're ready to go, and we've got a really good relationship with our hospital. They want to get them out of the ED as quickly as they can. So when they say they're ready to go, we call the state facility. So we say we're coming. This is about what time we'll be there, and we take them. And so far, since September, we haven't had them refuse. They call them drop-offs. They keep those statistics. And again, just reiterate, AG's office says there's no basis for a two-stop TDO, not in the law anywhere. You know, the TDO directs you to take the patient into custody and transport them to the designated facility. And I don't see any authority in the TDO to hold the patient once medical clearance is obtained. Now, you may be en route to state facility, and in the meantime, they find another private facility that'll take them, the alternative facility. So you could get a call on the way and say, oh, no, we changed the TDO now. They got to go to Norfolk or, and I probably didn't say that right, but Newport News or somewhere else. And that's permitted under the statute. But, and so you're always going to deal with that. I think, you know, Ms. Tysinger did say, and kind of echoed what Secretary Moser said, that I think there is going to be some effort on the part of DBHDS to get you guys less involved in the transports. But I don't know about you, but our alternate transportation providers really aren't interested if a person is combative. So you think, okay, so you're holding this person in custody, and you know, what if they say, I'm going to leave? You have to fight with them. You have to hurt them to keep them there. You know, is there liability for that? I can come up with the legal theory for that, because you didn't do what the court order said, and your authority lies in the court order and the statute. You know, and we frequently had situations where, you know, they'll call sheriff's office and say, well, this person's here, you need to come take them to this place. You got an order? No. Well, then we're not taking them, because the order is our authority to act. And so, you know, unless you amend that order or you put it in the order that we're supposed to transport, then we're not going to do that. Because, again, it's just, you know, the liability. Unfortunately, you know, just the whole TDO situation it's a desperate situation. I think it's made worse by COVID, and hopefully that's resolving. But, you know, it's not a good situation for anybody, and you guys get the brunt of it. I think it was either right before or right after we filed this petition, the mandamus petition. Chief Katz in Chesterfield posted a picture on Facebook, and I don't know how it happened that I saw it, but I did. And he had taken a picture of cars in the Chippenham Hospital parking lot, and there were about 10, 12 police cars sitting in the parking lot, and he said every one of them is here holding somebody on a mental health case because there's nowhere for them to go. And he made the point that we wouldn't hold a person in custody for 24 hours without taking them somewhere or getting them some kind of evaluation and treatment if necessary. I know that's a big focus at the jail. You know, we have to evaluate these people when they come into jail pretty quickly, both medically and for mental health purposes. So that's about all I have. If you have questions, happy to answer them. Yes, sir.
On the one code, and it went too fast really for me to see what the code was, it says that the facility cannot refuse to take a subject, which is the basis of your discussion that TDO says take it to the facility. The code says they can't refuse to take the person.
Right.
And that's in law. Now, if they refuse to take the person, what is the remedy to that for them breaking the law at that point? And is there a remedy?
Well, I think that's the you know, what we are seeking in the mandamus petition. And if anybody wants a copy of that, you know, feel free to. I don't know if they put my email, but my email address is R. Chittister, you know, first letter, last name, at Giles County, and that's Giles, Giles, county.org. Shoot me an email, give me a call. If you can't find the contact information, call Sheriff Miller Irons. He knows how to get me. Be glad to share with you or share with your attorney. I mean, we've shared this stuff on local government attorneys listserv, so the ones that are looking at it should be aware. I know the social services listserv has been a lot of discussion on it, and we have our conference tomorrow and Friday and Saturday in Harrisonburg, and I know we're going to discuss it at the social services group session. I'm not going to be able to go because I've got a court case tomorrow, but I'm going to at least participate in that meeting. But I think mandamus is the remedy, because mandamus is you're seeking to compel a government official to do something that they're required to do under the law. Delegate Ballard made the point to me that suppose the judge issues the order and they violate it, then what? Is he going to lock up the commissioner? I don't know. Not my call at that point. But like I said, there's got to be some relief somewhere. And again, it's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be quick. That you're not going to hire and train 75 people to work at the Commonwealth Center, even in 6 months probably. If any of you know anything about it, I've got several family members in the medical field, and finding nurses is really difficult. And they tell me that at times they don't have an RN at the Commonwealth Center. That's another problem. But it's a question of what's worse, having a kid sitting in the DSS office or sitting in an emergency room getting no treatment, versus being in a facility where there's at least people that know how to deal with them. Again, it's an imperfect remedy, and we didn't do it. We're not trying to draw attention in Giles County. We didn't file it to draw attention. It got out to the media about a month after it was filed. I'm not sure how it got out. We didn't make any kind of press release, but I think it was a Thursday, I came back from court and had about 6 phone messages from various media outlets wanting information. And you may have seen, Washington Post did an article, Richmond Times-Dispatch did an article, and they keep following up to see what the status is. So a lot of interest in it. I know there's a lot of interest in your group. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Just to be clear, so you're saying there's no such thing as a safety net TDO?
As what? Yeah, but two-stop, in our area they call them two-stops. No. And the Attorney General's office agrees with that. Nothing in the code that provides for it. And all this is based on the code. And so I think I don't know why the magistrates are issuing them. I'll say one thing that I think has happened as a result of our policy to transport these people. I think our access is looking a lot more closely at whether or not, so it's kind of like magistrates with grant and bond. If somebody, if presumption applies, at least in our area, you're not getting bond. You may go to court the next day and judge give you bond, but you're not getting bond from the magistrate if presumption applies. I think put it in these TDO terms, access is starting to look a little more closely at these, and the close cases, maybe, we're trying harder to find some kind of community service they can go to as opposed to the TDO. One thing they've done in our area is they've opened a crisis center in Radford that can accommodate, I think, 3 to 5 people. Law enforcement can make referrals, and so for the people that don't need to be confined but still need mental health treatment, that gives sort of and this is something new. We just had a meeting on it last week, and I don't know what other, if we use some COVID money to set this up, and hopefully that will help and alleviate some of the pressure. Yes, sir.
We had a similar issue in Dickinson County a few weeks ago, and all of what Sheriff Mayer asked about. Not sure it was appropriate action, but
Right. Be interested in that. And I guess and we had a lot of discussions in that attorney work group. I guess my issue with the show cause is that the facility is not a party to the TDO. The TDO is directed to the sheriff or could be the police department, and directs them to do something by transporting. And so that's one of and maybe that's why the Attorney General's office, in their pleading, claimed that the TDO didn't require them to do anything. I think the statute requires them, and the show cause may work. I'll be interested to see. I don't know when we'll get a hearing in Stanton. I don't know how busy their docket is. There are a lot of pleas in bar and whatever the Attorney General's office has filed, but I think a court can get through them pretty quickly. I think we'll be able to stipulate most of all the evidence, so it's just a matter of what the judge thinks the law is and what he thinks is appropriate. Everybody says, Giles County, why'd you all do this? Well, we had a bad case, and we don't want it to happen again. Yes, sir. And I think the statutory framework is what directs me. The TDO is issued pursuant for the adult, pursuant to 37-2809, and in 809.1, says that the facility has to admit them. The state facility can't fail or refuse to admit the individual who meets criteria for temporary detention. I think that's clear. I don't know that. That may be certainly more of a argument for a show cause, but I think mandamus is probably the most appropriate remedy. I'd be interested to see what happens to the Eastern State if you do what we're doing and just take them up there. Because what the AG told me was that, look, once they get there, we don't want the liability of saying, no, we're not going to let them in. Or if you open the door by whatever means and take them in, then the burden's on them. If they let them out, then they're on the hook. And I don't think that's not a good optic. Again, it's a drastic remedy, but what else are you going to do? Somebody's got to force the issue because it's not getting addressed otherwise. Now, like I said, I'm encouraged that the new administration is trying to take some action and make some efforts, but maybe that there needs to be some push by the Attorney General's office or by the legislature, and that may be on the mind. Maybe that's something the Attorney General's office is thinking about as well when they go to the legislature and says, hey, we've got this circuit judge has ordered us to do this now. We can't. We've got to have money. I can't speak for them. Don't want to get in their mind. And I should have said this before, but I'm just attorney in Giles County. All you guys, I hope, have attorneys, and you talk to regularly. So, you talk to your attorney because they may say this guy's crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about, and that's fine. But, I'm not here to give you legal advice. I'm just kind of here to tell you, what we've done and for our limited purposes, it seems to be working. Anybody else? Right at 2:30. That's just perfect. I'll hang around for a little bit, so if anybody has any, I do want to I've got a termination parental rights case in the morning, so I want to get here before all the traffic, get out of here before all the traffic, but I'll hang around over here for a little bit if anybody has any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard. Senator Morris is stuck in traffic. We need to take a break till 3:30.
Okay. All right, we're going to change up a little bit. One of our next guests is not here, so we're going to take a break now and go to the exhibit hall. Make sure you all visit the exhibit hall. We're going to take a break till 3:30 and just be back here. It'll be a special presentation by Senator Morrissey and Delegate Kim Taylor.
So I'm gonna be around tonight, and I'll be here